Over on the left, we have Ryan Charles from Honeybutton. Jack Liu, the hero of the hour in the delisting from Float SV and RealAX. We've got Josh Robinson, who's a late entry to our panel, who's a chief architect at BitBoss, who have recently released a very nicely written a library called Keyring. Yeah. Of course, Jerry Chan from SBI and CTO of Handcash, Rafa. So the topic of this this forum is the future for BSV developers, and since we've got a room full of developers here, the obvious topic to touch on, I think, is careers in blockchain. We have a mix here of people who work with very large organizations as well as smaller startups, so there'll be some different perspectives, no doubt. But I guess I'd like to start with, I think all of us have been involved at some point in hiring developers for a Bitcoin context, within a Bitcoin context. Maybe starting with Ryan, what is it that you look for?
Sorry, what is it I look for?
In a developer when you're hiring.
Okay, so first of all, I guess that, from a hiring perspective, I mean, you care about things like, do you get along with each other? Because it's not necessarily just about skill. It kind of depends on what your situation is. But are you able to work together is a pretty important thing. That's kind of a hiring thing aside from being an engineer. For engineering specifically, I would say, look, I mean, no one really actually thoroughly understands Bitcoin, maybe except Craig. So in terms of having like a complete understanding of Bitcoin, I'd say that'd be a very silly requirement. I'd say things like, do they have the overall intelligence to figure everything out? And furthermore, do they have domain knowledge, like things like, do they know JavaScript? Do they know that type of thing? So I think it depends on the details, but I go in order: culture, overall intelligence, and specific skills.
Mm-hmm. Jack, I imagine you've had a pretty steep hiring curve recently with the sudden emergence of Float SV.
Yeah, I have the toughest job up here, not being a developer myself, but so it's kind of been from trial and error over many years at big companies and small companies. What I learned is that so much of the resource and the tech stack in Bitcoin is out there in the wild that you can find yourself. Mm-hmm. So that is a certain innate type of curiosity is very important, so that you humble yourself as a developer and look for other examples done better. Mm-hmm. That's very important. And being agile in the beginning, because the startup is pivoting, the technology itself is pivoting all the time, is extremely important. And then you also don't want to veer too much towards just a kind of celebrity engineer type who wants to be an online kind of celeb, but you want the person to be extremely detail-oriented at the task while reading, patents and papers like that.
Yeah. Okay. And Josh, you might not be known to too many people, as I think your company's just entered the BSV space in recent months. So maybe tell us a bit about your team. And I understand you were initially started developing a generic blockchain solution without actually knowing which blockchain it was going to be targeted at. So
yeah, we've been doing stuff with blockchains for 4 or 5 years now. Initially, though, we started using a private chain, using multi-chain, and we had to develop some tools. That's where Keyring came from, around different non-standard scripts for that. In our team, we have a couple developers working directly for us, and we have some offshore teams. And the things we usually look for in developers are more why they're developing, not necessarily the experience, because all of this is new, so the passion to create something new.
Okay. Jerry, you really come from the other, well, one extreme end of the spectrum, the financial institution type sector. So I imagine there are different requirements there, or different things you look for in building a team.
Maybe not so much different, because everything that was Ryan and Jack said was also definitely applies. We generally look for people who have good domain knowledge, bright, sharp, and can pick up new things. blockchain experience is not absolutely necessary, obviously, because it's really hard to find someone who's done something before, and if they have, it's probably something on Ethereum. So you have to unlearn a lot of things. And so, but from the finance perspective, we also like to look at people who are a little bit more business-minded, and maybe have some sort of financial experience on the other side, like how people who know how compliance department works, or back office versus middle office versus front office, because getting a developer to just like hammer out tools or cool things on blockchain is one thing, but actually making it sort of commercially viable in an enterprise is a very, very different set of skills.
Okay. And Rafa, I know you're in London, and I know you're looking for to hire at the moment, which makes you my competition. So I'm just going to skip over it. No, it's all right. You're at the, I guess the startup end of the spectrum. So is there anything different that you think you look for now?
No, I really think we are very on the same page. We just need people that is able to adapt to change very quickly, because we are in an innovative ecosystem, and also, of course, an agile mindset, and something that I personally like to find in software engineers is a good understanding of design patterns, refactoring, testing, this kind of mindset, and the rest you can, of course, just learn. So I prefer just to focus on more in the soft skills instead of very specific.
Yeah.
Of course, this is something very valuable, but it's not easy to find. So
We at Enchain, I think we have two different approaches. As everyone said, finding people with pre-made blockchain skills is not so easy, and that's something that we need to work on in the long term. But so we tend to find ourselves either taking people who have shown, an outstanding track record in slightly related industries, finance, high-speed trading, that sort of thing, and then try to feed the Bitcoin knowledge into them. Or on the other side, we do find people with pre-existing Bitcoin knowledge, then probably we can take people with a bit less experience and try to put those two together. Now, I'm sure there's a lot of developers here who are not full-time Bitcoiners. They're probably working for other companies that may or may not have any interest in blockchain. So I'm not going to ask any particular person if someone wants to jump in. What advice would you give somebody who wants to kind of advocate for a Bitcoin or a blockchain solution to their own business?
Is that for me?
Oh, anyone.
Okay, so I would say, look, first of all, so we're pretty consumer-facing in everything that we do. So we kind of look at both sort of the end user and developers, kind of how we look at it. So the developer would be not strictly speaking a business, but more like making sure that this can be integrated easily. So we're just sort of making all these things possible with MoneyButton. So the way I look at it is you need to actually solve real problems for people. It's not about things like pitching people on ideology, right? What this is you need to make an actual working product that actually solves their problem. They will buy it from you. That's it. So that's the answer. And this is why we need things like massive scale, because the way all these things work ultimately are with massive scale. We're going to be able to create better products that solve more problems for people with massive scale and the original protocol. So, that's how you do it. So create real products, real businesses, and forget about ideology. If you have to pitch people on sound money or something like that, you have already just completely missed the point. That is not a product for most of the world, right? So pitch people on something that actually matters to them. Create a product that they can use in their business, right? Or as an end user.
I want to echo that. I think we have to, from enterprise perspective and commercial perspective as well, we have to basically talk to B2B customers and clients, and you really, they're not there to listen to your ideology. It doesn't really matter. Like their opinion of what the Federal Reserve does has no bearing whatsoever on any products that you buy and any platforms they use. So basically avoid all those discussions, and even avoid. My first question is like, so you want to build a blockchain system? Why, right? Do you really need a blockchain system, or is it just because you want to show your manager that you're progressive and you're doing it's like really high tech, cutting edge stuff? Because most of the time, you're going to basically prune off more than 50% of the project size. You don't really need a blockchain solution. You just wanted to put that on some piece of paper that said you're doing it. So, you know, cutting through the sort of the pump, I guess you can call that pump. And also, you know, blockchain is not about, you know, the thing that you should not sell is, you know, new money for the world or, you know, saving babies.
Because we all like babies.
we do.
Yeah. Okay. We're going to change tack a little bit and talk about the developer ecosystem. And I'm actually going to throw this question out, not just to our panel, but to anyone in the audience. We are going to spend a lot of time, well, have spent a lot of time today, and we will tomorrow, talking about the things that are getting done in the ecosystem. Bitcoin SV is not just about Bitcoin SV, the node software. It's an entire ecosystem that all works together. And we're adding new things to it and new exciting tools to it all the time. But it's useful sometimes to stop and think, what are the holes in the picture? Like, what's missing? And I'm sure some of the, I know we've got some hackathon contestants here. Some of them might have hit some roadblocks. But if there was one thing, or rather, what is something that you wish that the Bitcoin SV ecosystem did have that would make your lives easier in building products that it doesn't currently? Bitboss, I think you probably have a good answer to that, or 2 months ago you had a good answer to this question.
Yeah, one of the things we're really excited about is the lifting the restrictions of the standard scripts, so you can do a lot more and take full advantage of the bit script that's there. And it's, yeah, you need the tooling to take advantage of that. And like Craig was saying, build different layers of languages on top of that. So it's higher level and higher level.
Yeah. Okay. Is anyone else missing any tools that they want that would have made their lives easier? Yeah?
Yeah, I would like just to differentiate between two kind of tools. The tools that the BSB developers need to build their own thing, and also the tools that the BSB developers had to create for the non-BSB developers. Because right now we have to demand so much to the people that is not on BSB to learn to do the minimal things that you can do in the blockchain. And if we are asking for a month of learning to other startups, to the people, to just to send a payment or to store data on the blockchain, I think this is too much. So I think the next level of the tools that we need to create are tools that provide the abstraction that the other developers need to don't force them to learn too much, because maybe they don't care. They just want to use the blockchain. They don't want to learn anything because probably they are part of a startup or a business, and time is money.
Probably they're a business that's used to interfacing with boring things like SAP or...
and it should work like any other API.
So following on in this discussion, you just reminded me, like, one thing that we could really use is just a compiler. That for the people who don't want to learn Bitcoin script, like something that compile some high-level language Bitcoin script would be awesome. But for those who really are, because we do need people to actually tinker around at the script level, I think a validator, like a simple, script validator. Like Bitcoin node, removing all the parts of like the networky parts, and you just like, I want a local node which works on a mempool, and then I want to send it scripts, and I want you to evaluate it, and that I think would be useful.
Yeah.
You can have that.
Can I take a slightly slightly different view of this, which is that instead of specific tools, I mean, I think something that's really missing that would be extremely useful to developers would be just basically more information about stuff. Because part of the problem is actually people have no idea what's going on and about how any of this stuff works. and they get involved in crypto and they start programming on Ethereum or whatever because they've got good tools, little do they know how doomed their project is going to be because it just doesn't scale and etc. But if we have information that actually explains to these people and it clicks with them and they understand, like, oh, so I don't need to waste 2 years of my life building on Ethereum because it's never going to work. I can just spend that time building on Bitcoin SV. So, I mean, I would look at it that way. And just to give some specific examples, this is why we create our documentation, which is not just documentation about Money Button, but about Bitcoin. Because we're trying to explain all the stuff that you really need to know to be able to do these things. So the information needs to go with the tools. You got to explain how things work, how they fit together. And if they have a problem, well, if they understand what's going on, they can figure it out. And that applies to developers. It doesn't apply to the end user. They should never have to figure this stuff out. But the developer, they need to understand how everything fits, right? So when you have a tool, we have things like leaky abstractions where the tool breaks. What happened? If the developer doesn't understand anything, they're screwed. But if they understand what's going on, they can fix the tool and they can go on. So I would say things like documentation, in the sense of what we're doing, which is like explaining how Bitcoin works, okay? Things like blogs, videos, that type of material. This is extremely helpful, of course, which is probably what you're asking these questions and stuff like this. This panel will be useful to people. This goes online. You can point people to this type of information. And things start to make sense to people. So that's different than a set of tools, but making sure that they understand what they need and save them wasting years of their life on completely wrong things.
Yeah. I think you make a really good point. I mean, I recall my own journey into learning my way around Bitcoin, which was obviously back on BTC. And funnily enough, probably the person that helped me most in my first few months was Luke Jr., but he doesn't seem to help me very much anymore for some reason. But at the time, I had the benefit of the Bitcoin wiki and quite a lot of other resources. And in Bitcoin SV, it's probably definitely one of our weaknesses. We actually need to still rely on the BTC wiki because we don't have our own, and we know, of course, some of it's wrong. Well, it's wrong for us. But tell us a bit more about the docs that you've been working on. Like, what sort of content is there?
Before I do that, I mean, look. So on the wiki thing, here's what we do. Let's make a wiki that uses, how many times have I said this before? That uses Money Button, which has, what you do is you actually monetize it and you allow people to earn money by helping to write all of the documentation. So put a button on there that people can press to actually acquire this information. Create a preview video that's incredibly compelling that everyone shares around for free, followed by 2 hours of highly technical information that actually explains what the hell you just said in complete detail, but it's behind a paywall of $1. You allow anyone to do stuff like this on a website. Now anybody can go out there and start actually explaining things well, and they can do it a lot because they're actually earning money. And we're actually using Bitcoin SV to solve Bitcoin SV problem.
Brilliant. Well, there's a business model, or at least a source of employment for anyone out here who wants to take that on. So we're going to wrap up soon because cocktails, of course, which takes precedence over anything else. I think to finish up, I'm just going to throw to the audience and see if anyone has any particular questions for the panel or any particular person on the panel.
You said, I'm looking at from the start how to get into it. That's my question, how to get into it. It's not like Udemy courses. Like I've got into AI, I managed to do that. But there was millions and millions of Udemy courses, millions of AI for dummies. It's not the same thing with this. It's the starting point starts at time.
Because what happened is, just to rant for the millionth time here, but what happened is we actually started to build a lot of this information and it was ruined by other people. And we got to go back in and redo a bunch of stuff that was started like 10 years ago. So unfortunately, these people, that's why I rant about them all the time, like people understand they set us back by years. I mean, they created a huge problem. So anyway, for all the people that are new and that don't fully appreciate why I'm so angry about all this stuff, but I mean, let's just do it now. We do it again. Finally, we have a stable protocol. We have scaling. We don't have to worry about these ridiculous arguments that we're having with people about ideology and nonsense. So we can just do all these things for real now. So the good news is that when we start to do all this stuff, we're not wasting our time anymore. We're not going to have Luke Jr. delete it or something silly. It's just going to it'll actually be effective this time. So we have to some extent redo some of this work that was done years ago, but that's okay because it's going to last this time, and we've learned some really, really interesting lessons that will allow us to prevent making many of the mistakes that happened over the years. So that's how it is. We redo all this stuff, and we can rope in some of the old material, we start creating it anew again, and we just go in the right direction this time and don't let people hijack the project and set it back by 5 years.
Good. Yeah. Yeah, I feel the same sense of urgency as Ryan just mentioned. So from my personal standpoint, we're very much years behind, but we have everything it takes to catch up in a speed that I don't think people in this room or even myself fully comprehend. That is, Bitcoin is an open protocol. If it has the scale, which it already does, the number of transactions on chain is sorely lower than the capacity of the blocks right now, even. So in the businesses that I've started, I find that I'm going too slow. And I don't like to be complimented on going fast. My biggest fears are other people who go about 10 times faster than I've been going. And so what I would like to contribute as sort of if business goes better and we have more revenue from the businesses like Flow SV and Relay, which I'm personally financing right now, is I want to hold a proof of work boot camp. Yeah, so if you want to work, you fly down, we'll find a cheap place in Southeast Asia, and you can make it like a reality TV show if you want to cover it. And just 20, 30 developers shows up. We have a checklist of Internet 2.0 type companies that we think are ripe for disruption, business models as such. We'll have technical experts, hopefully you come down, Steve, and to tell you, okay, here are all the patents, here are all the things you do on Bitcoin SV that you do not know. In the first 2-3 days, we go through that entire library, and we train some of the brightest minds. So think about Y Combinator, but instead of taking a 7% stake in their business, sitting there and waiting for the IPO, okay, we don't do that. We help support these businesses that are to come, and then you don't think about it like a hackathon where it's one guy wins or two guys wins and everyone else just kind of feels like they lost. Bitcoin SV has potential to make hundreds or thousands of businesses thrive at the exact same time. So that's what I want to commit to from a business perspective, someone who might have a sense of where commercially this might be going to help developers kind of get there faster.
Let's do it.
Yeah. Let's do it.
Just jumping back to your wiki idea there, Ryan, for a moment. I guess I'd point out there's actually a golden opportunity there for an early starter because there is a lot of content out there. It just needs to be curated and put into one place. So it might be useful for us to kind of form a panel of reviewers to make sure that the wrong stuff doesn't kind of get through if it's cut and pasted from a Bitcoin wiki, but a BTC wiki. But
let the market decide, right? I mean, we said we established the wiki protocol, and there's if so long as it's done correctly, where it's like you let people earn money. So what you do is you have to think through the incentives too, but that by itself would set it apart a lot. I mean, Wikipedia has the same problem that the internet has. Everything on Wikipedia is free. So what ends up happening is it's what are people willing to create for free and consume for free? You eliminate everything that's worth something, right? So Wikipedia is like a shallow fraction of everything because it's basically all the stuff that no one, wasn't valuable enough for someone to put in a book. Is basically what it is. So if you create something where everything is actually valuable, it's a huge difference. Now that doesn't mean that it's true, but it means that it's at least at the quality of like a book instead of just Reddit or Twitter or something like that.
Yes, that's the business model. There are so many courses online, so many things that the listening of a guy from zero to hero, BSB program, whatever like that, is needed.
Well, I think we definitely managed to identify a couple of gaps here that we've got, and a couple of potential solutions. This is what tends to happen when you stick a bunch of creative people who are passionate about Bitcoin in a room together. We had the Wallet Workshop back in March, and that produced some amazing results, some of which you've seen here today. I don't know if we've got everything out of that publicly announced yet. I suspect there's more, but memory fails me right now. But anyway, I think we're all getting thirsty, so...
Can I say one last thing?
Sure.
I think I'm just going to hammer that somewhat theme home because I felt that recently, since I think the time opportune got bigger, then people started putting data. I think history is going to look back at that time as the beginning of history, right? Because 1,000 years later, I mean, all our books could be gone, but people are going to be able to track back to the first recorded history being the time that opportune got bigger and people started putting stuff online. So, you know, thanks to Ryan's money button, you know, I've started just for fun throwing stuff into blockchain, stuff that I want to remember or keep, you know, tabs on. You know, in 5 years, I'm going to remember that you said this and I'm going to need proof that you did. So I'm just going to throw that in there. Cost me like, you know, 0.0 cents or 0.1 cent, sorry. And that's something that everybody can do. And that's just, I mean, that's not a money-making business, but it definitely is. I feel that everything you do now, to echo what Ryan said, is not going to be wasted now. Because everything we do, you slap a money button in front of it, and I'm not selling money button, but you slap money button or something that charges money in Bitcoin SV for it, and it's going to be recorded forever, right? And so, you know, we'll never have people deleting Wikipedia pages. We'll never have people removing copyrights from source code anymore. We'll never have any sort of disputes of like who authored what. Because even if you put something illegal or wrong or lies, well then other people are going to pay to out you, and then you get dealt with. So I think we've witnessed the beginning of recorded history as seen from a time traveler 1,000 years in the future.
I just have to say, we have to thank Steve, who suddenly figured out one day to do this. I mean, at least this is my memory of it. So if what you're saying is true, you started history.
Thank you, and now we really did crash through the looking glass. So, all right, I think we'll wind it up now. I would like to thank all of you for coming today and for your attention. As Ryan rightly points out, it is a commodity, it's a scarce resource. So thank you for giving it to us. And thank you, of course, to all of our speakers who shared some really interesting and cool information with us today. And we will look forward to seeing you all tomorrow. And drinks are in the room just next door, so please get in and enjoy.